Walmart, Target, and Kmart all opened their doors in 1962. Today, Walmart brings in roughly $650 billion a year. Target continues to grow with strong branding and online momentum. And Kmart, it's barely alive in 2025, with a handful of stores that feel more like time capsules than functioning retailers. But this collapse wasn't just bad luck. It was the result of decades of decisions that sabotaged the company from within. Along the way, their flashy blue light special and a series of disastrous business moves turned an industry leader into a cautionary tale. So if they all started the same year, why did Kmart, of all three, fall the hardest? The Three Giants of 1962. In the early 1960s, three discount retailers launched that would go on to reshape American shopping habits. 1962 marked the first Walmart in Rogers, Arkansas, the first Target in Roseville, Minnesota, and the first Kmart in Garden City, Michigan. Each was built on a similar promise: affordable goods for a country moving quickly into suburbs and shopping plazas. The timing meant opportunity was wide open, but what seemed at first like a shared beginning soon split into three very different stories. In those early years, Kmart looked like the clear winner. Garden City was only the start of a furious expansion across the country. Within a few short years, Kmart had planted its bright red K logos in dozens of states. Families saw the chain as a fixture of their shopping routines long before Walmart or Target became household names. By contrast, Walmart remained a cautious regional player in the South, while Target was only a modest experiment by a Minnesota department store chain. If you looked at the landscape around 1970, it was easy to assume Kmart would remain permanently on top. The irony is that Kmart's advantage came less from strategy than from speed. Backed by profits from the older SS Crest 5 and dime stores, the company had cash to spend on aggressive growth. More stores meant more visibility, and more visibility meant more revenue, or so executives believed. Rarely did they stop to think about refining efficiency, streamlining logistics, or building customer loyalty in new ways. Expansion itself became the plan. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the competitors who looked small and slow were quietly building sturdier foundations. That contrast was sharp. Kmart raced to add locations. Walmart built lean logistics and data-driven supply chains. Target refined a brand identity for middle-class shoppers. Each path led to a different kind of strength. Kmart's giant footprint provided immediate recognition. Walmart's infrastructure meant savings could always be passed along to customers. Target's polish gave it room to climb into a niche away from bare-bones discounters. Kmart looked dominant, but the other two were practicing for a much longer game. At this stage, though, Kmart still came across as untouchable. The stores were busy, covering everything from toys to appliances. Families in suburbs, cities, and small towns alike could find one within easy driving distance. If a new strip mall was opening in the late 60s, odds were high Kmart was the anchor. The branding was loud, the lights were bright, and the aisles seemed endless compared to what competitors offered. To ordinary shoppers, it felt like Kmart was retail's unstoppable force. But the very scale that looked impressive became its vulnerability. Kmart leadership confused size with permanence. When Walmart experimented with technology, Kmart assumed customers wouldn't notice. When Target shaped its aesthetic identity, Kmart saw no reason to change. The belief was that sheer footprint made them safe, that volume alone was proof of dominance. In reality, rapid growth was only masking gaps in strategy. The company's expansion had become noise without structure, momentum without control. Numbers later made the illusion clear. At its peak in the 1990s, Kmart operated roughly 2,400 stores across the country, a figure most retailers could only dream of. But the massive size wasn't the result of smart systems. It was the result of repeating the same store model in as many places as possible, hoping ubiquity would guarantee survival. It gave them short-term recognition, but no real long-term resilience. Other chains benefited from their slower start. Walmart's patience let it master efficient distribution long before nationwide scaling. Target's smaller presence gave it time to practice blending affordability with style. Each found a way to position themselves that wasn't only about how many stores they had, but how those stores actually worked and who they were built for. Kmart, by comparison, had committed to a single tactic: more and faster. It can be compared to three runners on a track. One sprinted right from the line, opening up a quick lead. The others hung back, adjusting pace and refining form. For the first stretch, the sprinter looked unbeatable, but stamina mattered, and when the distance extended, the runner who went out too fast burned out. That was Kmart, so far ahead early that few thought it could lose, but so poorly prepared that its lead only made the later collapse more dramatic. By the late 1970s, Kmart felt woven into everyday life. Oversized stores dotted skylines, stocked with back-to-school notebooks, low-cost clothing, and household basics stacked high under fluorescent lights. Shopping there became routine for millions of families. From the outside, the chain seemed permanent, even invincible. And yet, hidden under that surface, Walmart and Target had been reshaping the rules of the contest. The evidence of future cracks was already in place, even though most customers couldn't see it. Kmart's dominance in this era teaches a simple lesson. Early success can be a trap. When a company believes size itself guarantees endurance, it risks missing the changes happening under its nose. Kmart never slowed down long enough to notice that its footprint was covering over weak foundations. Competitors who seemed irrelevant at first were learning sharper lessons that would eventually undo everything Kmart had built. So why did scale, the very thing that usually decides retail battles, fail to protect them? The answer begins with the way success itself can blind a company to the ground shifting beneath it. That is what makes Kmart's rise and fall not just striking, but inevitable. From blue light specials to billion-dollar empires. By the 1970s, Kmart had stepped firmly into what looked like its golden age. This was the decade when the chain no longer seemed like just another discount store, but instead became a symbol of suburban life. As families spread out into new neighborhoods built around highways and strip malls, the glowing red K often stood as the centerpiece. For many, a Saturday trip to Kmart was part of the weekly routine, parents hunting for school supplies under fluorescent lights, kids hovering near the toy aisles, and carts piled with everything from socks to toasters. In those years, Kmart felt not just like a store, but a thread woven through American family life. One of the defining features of this era was the Blue Light Special. Introduced in 1965, it was a promotional stunt that captured the imagination of shoppers. A flashing beacon would appear in the aisles, accompanied by an announcement that a surprise deal was happening right then and there. The offer might be small, but the thrill of rushing over felt like winning a prize. These moments weren't just about discounts. They created stories families repeated at home and jokes that popped up in popular culture. For a short time, the blue light itself became shorthand for bargain hunting fun, a clever piece of theater that made the brand stand out. The chain thrived as shopping centers flourished. A new plaza might feature restaurants, a drugstore, and a theater, but Kmart was often the anchor that made the site feel complete. Parents picked up appliances alongside their weekly groceries, teenagers bought records in the electronics aisle, and holiday shopping meant entire families pushing carts through crowded aisles. Kmart wasn't chic, but it was reliable. Its purpose was simple: to be affordable, convenient, and broad enough to serve everyone. For a while, it accomplished that mission. The advantage appeared overwhelming when compared to its competitors. In the 1970s, Walmart remained a small regional chain, recognized mainly in the South. Target had only just begun experimenting with adding hints of style to discount shopping, but its vision was still developing. In contrast, Kmart felt massive, a brand embedded not only in landscapes but also in habits. In many small towns, going to Kmart was the default answer when a family needed just about anything. Its scale gave the impression of permanence, as if no rival could possibly catch up. Yet the same period that looked like pure success also revealed hidden problems. The Blue Light Special was clever but cosmetic. While Kmart invested its energy in promotions and rapid expansion, Walmart was quietly developing a supply chain model that cut costs more effectively. Target was learning how to court a middle-class audience by making discount shopping feel modern. Kmart's leadership, by comparison, seemed more comfortable relying on spectacle and momentum than refining operations. The brand was popular, but popularity alone didn't guarantee resilience when competition intensified. Financially, the results looked reassuring. Revenues were enormous, and Kmart ranked among the retail giants. But sheer revenue masked the fact that the company wasn't building systems to protect that money from future disruption. Logistics remained clunky, stores felt generic, and the identity of the chain stayed stubbornly broad. In retrospect, the golden age was less about strong foundations and more about riding the wave of suburban growth, while competitors carefully studied their own long-term moves. Culturally, though, Kmart left its mark in a way few other retailers of the time could match. To much of suburban America, its aisles shaped everyday memories. Customers remember parents filling carts in back-to-school season, the slightly harsh buzz of fluorescent lighting, or the occasional excitement of a blue light flashing near the hardware section. These associations made Kmart feel like a constant presence. It had turned itself into a familiar backdrop to middle-class life, a place where shopping wasn't glamorous but felt necessary. And still, the question lingered beneath all that success. what happens when spectacle and size are treated as strategy. Kmart's cultural dominance in the 1970s came from being close at hand, affordable, and lively, but not from operational excellence or a distinct vision. The very qualities that made people remember the experience, a flashing light, a crowded parking lot, a predictable bargain, offered no shield against the transformations already brewing in the industry. The irony of this high point is clear with hindsight. The company gave the impression of complete control, of permanence secured by ubiquity and tradition. Yet while Kmart trusted the momentum of expansion and customer familiarity, Walmart and Target were already building strengths that would outlast promotions and habits. Popularity can secure headlines and keep stores busy, but it doesn't solve structural weaknesses. In the moment, shoppers weren't thinking about flaws. They were rolling carts down wide aisles, snagging unexpected bargains, and weaving Kmart into their daily routines. To them, the chain looked unstoppable. Only later would it become clear that the golden years, with all their energy and cultural imprint, had left the company unprepared for the sharper challenges ahead. The success of the blue light specials and the crowded stores show how quickly excitement can build in retail. But turning that excitement into something durable is another task entirely. Kmart had mastered novelty and scale. The real test was whether those strengths could evolve into a business model that would survive the pressures waiting just over the horizon. And that raises the crucial question: how do you turn novelty into something built to last? Cracks in the empire. By the late 1970s, signs of weakness began to appear beneath Kmart's impressive surface. The stores were still busy, shelves were stocked, and the company remained a household name across America. But inside the numbers, the story was different. Margins were narrowing, and inventory was turning slower than competitors. The reason was clear. While rivals were beginning to invest in computerized distribution and point-of-sale systems, Kmart relied on outdated processes. That decision quietly tilted the playing field against them. Walmart, in particular, was making moves that would later reshape the entire industry. Sam Walton didn't just want a lot of stores. He wanted a network that ran at maximum efficiency. His hub-and-spoke distribution system allowed central warehouses to serve clusters of nearby stores with quick, low-cost deliveries. On top of that, Walmart poured money into early computerized reordering systems. These gave managers real-time visibility into which products were selling so inventory could be replaced immediately. Faster replenishment meant shelves rarely sat empty, while lower shipping costs gave Walmart room to cut prices further. Kmart didn't keep pace. Its supply chain remained slow, bulky, and dependent on manual oversight. Shipments often arrived in the wrong quantities, leaving some aisles crowded with unsold goods while basic essentials ran out. Without modern data systems, stores couldn't adjust quickly, and senior management lacked accurate visibility into performance trends. Each of these inefficiencies ate away at profit margins, even when sales volumes looked strong on paper. The number of stores was climbing, but the underlying operations looked increasingly fragile compared to Walmart's precision. At the same time, Target was carving its own identity. Instead of chasing Walmart's cost advantage, Target positioned itself differently, closer to a mid-tier department store, but still affordable. Stores were brighter, cleaner, and carried merchandise that felt selected rather than scattered. Advertising leaned on style and design, appealing to middle-class families who wanted value, but also cared what their purchases said about them. The effect was subtle but powerful. Target wasn't the cheapest or the biggest, but it was increasingly viewed as smart. Customers had a reason to pick Target instead of simply defaulting to whichever discount store was nearby. Caught between Walmart's efficiency and Target's clarity, Kmart struggled to define its purpose. Inside the buildings, the experience reflected that uncertainty. Layouts were cluttered, lighting was harsh, and interiors aged quickly. For regular shoppers, the stores still served their needs, but they didn't inspire loyalty. By the early 1980s, younger families saw Walmart as practical and cost-driven, Target as stylish and aspirational, and Kmart as somewhere in between without a clear identity. That middle ground may have felt safe to executives, but it left customers with little reason to choose them first. The problems weren't yet visible to casual observers. Kmart still had huge reach and steady traffic. Revenues stayed large enough to reassure leadership that the business remained healthy, but appearances were misleading. Walmart's lean infrastructure meant it could cut costs endlessly without hurting service. Target's investment in branding positioned it for cultural traction that extended far beyond its size. Kmart, meanwhile, was leaning entirely on physical presence, on the idea that sheer scale ensured survival. That assumption made executives too confident. They pointed to the number of stores and constant streams of customers as confirmation the model was working. Inside boardrooms, operational issues were often minimized or dismissed as temporary setbacks. But year by year, Kmart's profitability slipped relative to competitors. The company was earning less from every sale than Walmart, and when shoppers wanted an atmosphere that felt fresher and more modern, they drifted to Target. The surface numbers looked good, but they were masking a deeper erosion happening underneath. For investors and suppliers, the shift was becoming obvious. Walmart's computerized systems gave it precise control of costs and margins. Target had tapped into broader cultural trends around taste and image. Kmart, in comparison, looked like it was standing still. Its reliance on outdated technology and stale presentation didn't inspire long-term confidence. Slowly, the market stopped seeing Kmart as an unbeatable giant and began recognizing it as a vulnerable competitor hoping momentum alone would carry it forward. By the early 1980s, the contrast was sharp. Walmart was expanding with infrastructure designed to scale smoothly across new regions. Target was strengthening a brand identity that connected directly with customers. Kmart was still opening stores at a rapid pace, but relying on systems built for a different era. It was a troubling position to be in, still leading in size, but not in efficiency, not in branding, and not in adaptability. The reality was simple. Kmart had started the race with the strongest lead, spreading stores nationwide before Walmart or Target had fully established themselves. But winning early didn't mean winning forever. What mattered was the foundation behind the growth. Walmart built one of the most advanced retail distribution systems in the country. Target built a brand with cultural appeal. Kmart built size and very little else. So while the empire looked unshakable from the outside, the inside was already fraying, and those weaknesses didn't go away in the decades ahead. In fact, they became more damaging when Kmart made the choice to stretch even further rather than focusing on fixing the problems at its core. The cracks were spreading, and instead of repairing them, leadership looked outward for new opportunities. Kmart had the head start, but not the infrastructure. The diversification disaster. By the 1980s, Kmart carried the weight of a national presence that seemed impossible to shake. Store counts were still climbing, revenue looked strong, and many saw the company as one of the most permanent fixtures in American retail. But instead of using that position to modernize its operations or repair the inefficiencies already eating steadily into margins, Kmart's leadership turned its attention outward. The result was a wave of acquisitions across industries that had little connection to running discount department stores. What appeared bold on paper only distracted the company from the work most essential to its survival. The list of purchases shows just how far the chain strayed. During this period, Kmart acquired Walden Books, Builders Square, the Sports Authority, Borders, and later even invested in OfficeMax. Each deal seemed like an attempt to spread influence across every corner of consumer spending. Families bought books, home improvement supplies, sporting goods, and office products, so why not own the chains that would capture all of them? To executives, the plan widened Kmart's reach into multiple categories of daily life. But each of those businesses demanded specialized operational expertise, entirely different supply structures, and dedicated leadership. In practice, they diverted capital and attention away from the very stores that were supposed to be the foundation of the company's identity. At first, these acquisitions looked promising. Revenue received a short-term bump, investors saw diversification as strength, and Kmart began to resemble a retail holding company instead of a single chain. But the problem was that Kmart had no real knowledge advantage in any of these industries. A bookstore chain demanded nimble inventory management, careful negotiations with publishers, and the ability to anticipate cultural trends. Home improvement stores flourished only when distribution channels for lumber and construction materials were efficient. Sporting goods chains required entirely different seasonal planning and strong brand partnerships. Even office supply retail had its own rhythms that rewarded scale and precision. Kmart never developed those systems because its focus was spread too thin. The worst part of this strategy was the trade-off. Every acquisition absorbed capital that could have gone toward problems at the heart of Kmart's discount stores, aging layouts, outdated technology, and a supply chain that was already lagging behind. At the exact moment, Walmart was investing heavily in computerized inventory systems and regional distribution centers, Kmart was spending that money buying Borders and Builders Square. Had the same resources been committed to upgrading inventory tracking across its own stores, Kmart could have closed gaps that later proved fatal. Instead, shoppers in many locations faced inconsistent stock, slow replenishment, and stores that felt frozen in the past. Meanwhile, competitors stayed disciplined. Walmart had no interest in diversifying into unrelated sectors. Its strategy was simple and relentless: cut costs through supply chain mastery, pass savings to customers, and scale up with efficiency. Every warehouse, truck fleet, and technology upgrade reinforced its single purpose. Target took another clear path. Its stores became brighter, more stylish, and carefully designed to appeal to middle-class families who wanted affordability with a sense of taste. The difference was not just about identity, but about focus. While Walmart and Target doubled down on their models, Kmart was busy managing businesses that did nothing to strengthen its core. The short-term positives from diversification quickly faded into long-term weaknesses. Borders required leadership that could navigate a shifting media industry, but Kmart neither had the patience nor the ability to guide it. Builders Square never developed the brand recognition that Home Depot or Lowe's achieved in home improvement. Sports Authority, absorbed into Kmart's portfolio, needed ongoing reinvention to stay relevant against specialty competitors. Together, these acquisitions demanded time and resources, while neglect in Kmart's discount stores only deepened. When customers walked into Kmart through the 1980s and 1990s, they often faced cluttered aisles, dim lighting, and outdated merchandise organization. Low prices weren't enough to mask the reality. The brand looked tired, while Walmart looked competent and Target looked modern. The real cost of this expansion wasn't simply financial, it undermined the company's identity. Internally, Kmart operated less like a discount retailer striving to improve and more like an unfocused collection of mismatched personalities. Externally, customers sensed the drift. Walmart became synonymous with value. Target became known for accessible style. Kmart, once the leader, blurred into irrelevance. Shoppers couldn't articulate what it stood for anymore, beyond being the store you went to when neither of the other two chains felt right. That lack of clarity hurt worse than any single failed purchase. This period reveals how dangerous it is to confuse activity with progress. Diversification made Kmart look more powerful, but the surface success masked a hollow core. Each new acquisition created the appearance of future potential, without resolving the real inefficiencies dragging down the main engine of profitability. Investors saw the number of companies under Kmart's control, not the absence of reinvestment in the chain that mattered most to everyday families. As the 1990s approached, the cost of that neglect became clear. Kmart had more than enough chance to choose a different course. With strong revenues and national footprint, it could have prioritized modern systems, remodeled stores, and a sharper brand image. Instead, the leadership chose a strategy that scattered attention across second-tier experiments, none of which built lasting advantage. One by one, those peripheral businesses struggled or were sold off, leaving Kmart weaker than before. By the time investors recognized that the empire of acquisitions had not added real strength, Walmart and Target were already far ahead in both infrastructure and identity. The consequence was not just wasted money, but wasted years. Critical technology upgrades that might have given Kmart flexibility were postponed. Store conditions suffered, customer loyalty eroded, and each acquisition further delayed the reckoning inside the core business. In hindsight, the diversification strategy looks less like bold ambition and more like willful avoidance of the harder task, admitting the stores themselves were no longer competitive. The opportunity cost was devastating. The money spent on Walden Books and Builders Square could have modernized Kmart's inventory systems nationwide, reducing stockouts and creating the kind of real-time data advantage that allowed Walmart to dominate. Even modest upgrades could have bought Kmart more time to adapt. Instead, what should have been investments in resilience became distractions. By the time leadership began to face these shortcomings, the competitive environment had already changed. Walmart had matured into a price-cutting machine with technology to back it. Target had secured its identity among suburban shoppers looking for affordable polish. Kmart, caught between them, had not strengthened either its image or its infrastructure. The acquisitions did not just fail, they eroded the very position Kmart had once held. In the end, diversification exposed the company's deeper weakness, an unwillingness to fix the fundamentals. By chasing breadth instead of sharpening depth, Kmart abandoned the simplest truth of retail. Customers care less about how many different categories a company can touch than about whether the stores they visit deliver value, clarity, and consistency. Kmart ignored that truth until it was too late. The fallout set the stage for an even more dangerous decision. Leadership's next move was to take on Walmart directly, in a contest where Walmart already controlled every advantage. And then Kmart picked the wrong battlefield. The price war with Walmart. In the early 2000s, Kmart's leadership made a gamble that ultimately sealed the company's fate. In 2001, then CEO Charles Conaway launched what became known as the Blue Light Always campaign, an attempt to reignite the old blue light special legacy and position Kmart as the nation's undisputed price leader. On paper, it sounded like the right move. After all, shoppers went to discount retailers for lower prices, and if Kmart could finally match Walmart head-to-head, why wouldn't customers return in droves? But the basic flaw was that this strategy challenged Walmart precisely in the space Walmart had spent decades fortifying. By the time Kmart reignited its everyday low prices push, Walmart was already unbeatable in cost leadership. While Kmart had spent years scattering its capital on acquisitions and pursuing broader store counts, Walmart had built one of the most efficient supply chains in American history. They negotiated directly with suppliers to secure better terms, operated tightly calibrated distribution hubs designed for rapid, high-volume flows of merchandise, and pioneered advanced inventory tracking technology that kept shelves stocked efficiently. Walmart didn't just win on price through marketing. Their entire model was engineered to guarantee it. Kmart, by contrast, lacked this kind of machinery behind the scenes. Its distribution operations were outdated and frequently slow, inventory systems lagged, and many of its stores were inconsistent performers. When Walmart shaved pennies off its prices, the efficiency of their supply chain protected profits.